Now, I read a few people tweeting the same thing yesterday. There are plenty of worse things going on in the world right now to be too angry about a football result, for sure. But I think it's safe to say that none of us saw a 4-0 thumping coming. Glenn, where do we start with this one? What an absolute disaster.
Yeah, it was. There's nothing too much you can say about it other than that. But delving into it, when I saw the Villa lineup and particularly the defence they had out, I thought we've got a good shout here. You know, they look a bit under strength, and you know, Callum Chambers and Ashley Young in the back four. I thought, you know, we'll have a good go at these. But the one sort of cog that we had missing with Salisu missing just seemed to totally unsettle the way we played. And it was kind of horrible from start to finish. From the moment Villa got their first goal, you could see where the problems were. I mean, for me, the central defenders were being too passive. They weren't pushing up. Danny Ings was dropping off. Coutinho was floating around in the gap between defence and midfield, which was too big because the centre backs weren't pushing up. And it was horrible when Ings and Coutinho, if you give them space and give them time to do what they want to do, then that's what happened. And we never really got to grips with it. You know, I thought if we could get in at half time, just the 1-0 down, then we'd have a chance to get back into it. But basically, we let in 3 goals in near enough 5 minutes, didn't we, either side of half time? And the rest of the game was a waste of time, really. I mean, it's funny Ed mentioned that Liverpool game earlier on. It was kind of similar to that. Villa got 4-0 up and then kind of phoned it in. They just were happy for us to play the ball around and not show much penetration. I think we had the one chance with Che Adams, which he smashed and the keeper saved. But yeah, the last half an hour was kind of a dead game, and we just have to learn the lessons from it and move on. And I was quite encouraged that with Ralph's interview, basically sort of not soft soaping it. He was pretty sure what had gone wrong and what the problem was. So it's the old we win or we learn thing. Hopefully we learn a few lessons from that. But the only thing that worries me slightly going forward is that Villa played a diamond midfield, and you kind of hope that that's something we can deal with if other teams decide to pick up on that. You know, but hopefully other teams won't have us. I mean, like we're playing Newcastle in the week, and Watford straight after that. So they haven't got any players like Coutinho. So hopefully it's a one-off and we can get it sorted from now on.
And Ed, what did you make of the whole sorry afternoon? I'd imagine the atmosphere was pretty good until about 3 o'clock.
Yeah, the atmosphere was excellent before the game. I think that I read a few things that I think Villa fans are saying we were the noisiest fans they've had for the first 15 minutes. And after that, it went, only one way. It's a shame, really, because the club have made such an effort to, put the scarves. I think they sent 2 people up the night before to put the scarves on the seats ready for us the following day. And I think the club did really well in talking and making it clear our support in Ukraine. And then you just expected the players on the pitch to perform. And I would just say that collectively, the midfield in particular, and I talk about Ward-Prowse and talk about Romeo, they had their worst games of the season together at the same time. Stevens, was really just cut adrift, and it says a lot when your keeper is voted the man of the match, because it could have been a hell of a lot worse if it wasn't for Fraser Forster yesterday. He had an outstanding game, as far as I could see, and we just. In fact, Villa beat us at our own game. They pressed high. They played with a very high intensity. And if you give Coutinho that room, that time, he's going to just kill you every time. They haven't got exceptional players, but I'd even say that Danny Ings had one of his better games for Villa yesterday. But we allowed him the space and the time to dictate the game, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. Glenn, so Salisu and Kyle Walker-Peters missing. Was it more about the 2 that came in, or do you think we got the setup wrong or the mentality? Because it'd be wrong to say, well, Stevens had a bit of a nightmare, but the start of the season we were seeing these praises.
Yeah, no, the combination of Stevens and Bednarek does not work. It's been proven not to work. The last time those 2 played together was against Arsenal when we got gubbed 3-0. It doesn't work because Bednarek seems to take his cue from whoever's next to him. When Salisu's there, and Salisu is like right on top of the strikers, Bednarek does the same. He seems to, take his lead from the player next to him. When, like yesterday, I kept seeing, if you look at the first goal, it's horrible. Him and Stevens are both kind of standing off, and then the indecision is final sort of thing, and then they decide to go, and then Bednarek doesn't close. I think it's Ings down, and then Stevens gets spun by Watkins. So they've kind of, for me, Bednarek takes his cue from whoever's next to him. He's not really a leader; he's a follower, and he has played well recently with Salisu. But yesterday, it just looked horrible from the first minute. I think Perot did all right. We know he's a good player. He doesn't seem to be comfortable when he's pushed forward as a wing back. It was interesting that we went to that formation in the second half, and he got taken off not long into it. But I mean, the horse had bolted by then. I think we were already 4-0 down, so that didn't really make a difference. But I think your centre halves. Part of the reason we've done well recently is the centre halves have been really aggressive with their. I don't mean just going in and kicking people. I mean, in the way they've engaged the strikers, high up the pitch, which is obviously the way Ralph wants them to play, and that wasn't the case yesterday. I mean, the only option we've got at the moment is Jan Valery, who's not been trusted to start a Premier League game as a centre back. But it will be interesting to see what he does on Thursday. We're playing against a big. I know we're going to talk about Newcastle later, but Newcastle are going to present a different challenge. Their two main strikers are a big lump in Chris Wood and St Maximin, who, as we all know, is a right handful. So we've got to get that central pairing right, or play with a back three if that's the way Ralph thinks is the best way to go against those strikers.
Were you surprised with the starting lineup, Ed, or just like me, looked at it and go, "Yeah, that's cool. We're going to be all right here." There's nothing to suggest that Valery should have come in, maybe. Or...
I think Glen, he makes a very good point. I think it's Salisu and either Bednarek and Stevens. It's not the two together; they just don't work. And Salisu is the glue that keeps the back four together for me. Or if you're playing as a three with pushing your wing back. But I think we were lacking. We looked leggy. We looked tired. We looked like West Ham wasn't that long ago. In fact, when Walker-Peters came on in the second half, we then had a better shape to us. But the game was done. It was finished. I mean, Villa could just coast through the game. But you can't play Stevens and Bednarek together. It just doesn't work. And I think I'd rather play. Because I think Valery is definitely more of a central player, whether it's midfield, whether that's defence. You can't play him out wide. He can't play there. I think we've all seen that. But he looks more comfortable in the middle of the park. And you wonder whether if he played Valery and or Bednarek and Stevens, whether there would have been a better balance to the back line. But we looked very short of ideas. And every time they came forward, we looked like we were in trouble. Honestly, we really did.
We've talked, Glenn, about the partnerships that have worked so well for us, that spine of the team. So obviously Stevens and Bednarek having a bit of a nightmare yesterday, but I think as Ed touched on, James Ward-Prowse and Romeo both had an off game. And when Prowsey's pinging the free kick into the wall, that it's just not going to be our day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't expect him to hit every free kick in the top corner. Occasionally, one's going to clip the ball, and he's not going to quite get it right. But he had a kind of anonymous game. And Romeo was having a shocker, and he was getting frustrated as well. And you could see that he piled into a couple of challenges that he was never ever going to win. And I think that's why he got taken off, because I think Ralph just said, look, the game is done. Let's just make sure he doesn't do anything silly. And I know he always somehow manages to never get sent off, but you could tell he was losing his rag a little bit in the second half, and he piled into a couple. So. I just think they got dragged around, and they didn't seem to get to grips with, what they were doing. I don't think the wide midfielders helped either. Villa were playing a diamond through midfield, and Armstrong and Elyounoussi in particular just didn't seem to be in touch with the central midfielders, and there just seemed to be huge gaps either side of Romeo and Ward-Prowse for those. I mean, we really needed those two guys to be really in tight when we were defending, and they just didn't seem to be. And Ed's probably got a better view of that because he was actually out the game, but that's how it looked like to me. So I think it was a bad day all round. I don't think Ralph will be looking at himself thinking that he perhaps got the tactics right, didn't quite adjust things as they needed to be. And but we've had games like that before this season where and in the main, we've learnt from it, and we've done better afterwards. So you've just got to hope that's the case this time.
Was it the worst game of the season, Ed, for you? Lack of ideas and goals being conceded at the wrong time?
I think, like a lot of people, you stand and have a beer in the concourse before the game, and we all arrive, full of excitement about the fact that we played such good football in the last 6-7 weeks, and we've been very competitive. But yesterday we just weren't competitive. Glen's made the point. We actually lost the game in midfield, which then invited the pressure onto our back four, which wasn't capable, and the shape was so bad. We didn't look the side that we've been, even with the team they put out at West Ham. There was no, we just seemed to have lost our shape, and we lost our way. I think we lost our way from about 20 minutes onwards, and we really never looked back. And by which time the game was over, second half, and Villa just coasted through the last half an hour. If they needed to score another, they could have done, but luckily they didn't want to press and push for another couple. So I think you just learn, you move on. Generally, I think the feeling in the crowd afterwards that we've had a good run and we've played some really good football, and we should be very proud of our team. But it was just one of those. It was just one of those days. Just there's too many players having an off day.
Yeah, Nick says the past week really encapsulates what it's like to be a Saints fan. So thanks, Nick. And Victor says, I think if Salisu isn't fit next game, we should go with Stevens and Valerie at centre-back again. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there for sure. Couple of other bits on the Villa game. Are there any positives to take out of it, Ed, from what you saw yesterday? Fraser Forster having a great game.
Fraser Forster had a good game.
Salisu had a good game by not playing.
Yeah, and Ralph was honest at the end. I don't think you can say anything other than that. I just think it was. I think that if there's been a few pictures on Twitter about the yellow and blue scarves. So I think that was the moment for me. I think the club made a really good point and made an effort there. But other than that, I don't think there's anything else you can take away from that game. Other than that shape doesn't work. That team, that setup doesn't work.
Yeah, and Glenn, a few people just saying, it's one of those things. Bad day at the office. Got to keep it in context as well. It was always going to come to an end. The good run of form at some point. So
yeah, I mean, when it went
do it more spectacularly, don't we?
When it went 4-0, I was thinking, oh, here we go again. I was thinking it's going to be another Muller in here, 6 or 7 or whatever. But we steadied it down and helped by Villa's lack of ambition after they went 4-0 up. But yeah, we didn't completely cave in, and we talk about Romeo piling into a couple of tackles. At least that shows that everyone cares. In those huge defeats that we had, there wasn't anybody doing that. We were kind of especially the Leicester one, we were kind of giving up, weren't we? And there was no one who looked like they cared. So yeah, write it off, move on.